Guys, BG in the house, coming to you live from New York. I'm afraid in this one you've got me in my hotel room. We don't have a wallpaper. We got a rather, bland sort of wall. It's not to my taste. Usually I like a sort of very, very loud retro 60s wallpaper. But, we get what we're given in this life. I've done 4 days in Washington DC, which was a good experience. Now into New York for a bit before the venture continues into other parts of the country. I don't really know why I'm recording this video, to be honest. It's more of just a long rambling piece. I was going to hit you guys with a few thoughts on Washington DC. Maybe we'll set up BG Goes Travelling rather than boxing gossip. And then maybe discuss some of the stuff that's going on in boxing. First and foremost, let me give a shout out to my man Jet. As several of you already know, in my absence, Jet ran the podcast this week with Jay and with Irish Tom. So shout out to those guys. If you want to check it out, Jet's channel is just called Boxing Discussions. And they've done the podcast in the normal format that I do weekly on Wednesday. So if you're missing your BG podcast fix this week, do check out Jet's channel, give him a subscription, and I believe it's nearly 2 hours worth of boxing discussion. You get the normal podcast just without myself hosting it. So who knows? Maybe it's better than the one that I do. I haven't actually listened to it yet myself. So Washington DC, nice place. Really liked it, actually. Really liked it. When I went to Washington DC, a lot of people on YouTube actually were telling me, be careful, BG. It's really rough. It's a really dangerous place, etc. Do you know what? I didn't actually get that vibe. I would say I grew up in London. I would say London for me is actually a more dangerous place than inner city DC. Now don't get me wrong, I'm sure if you hung around the outskirts of DC and went looking for trouble, you could find it easy enough. But yeah, my hotel was not far from Chinatown, if any of you guys know that area. So my hotel probably less than 15 minutes walk from the White House. It was fairly central, and I guess one of the things that you notice quite quickly is there was a huge amount of homelessness. So on all the street corners you would see large groups of homeless people, which was sad to see. But none of them were, at no point was there any aggression or anything like that. At no point did I feel unsafe, so to speak. It was just something that you noticed. But as a city itself, I thought it was a real nice place. I was only there for 4 days, but yeah, I didn't see any of this security threat that everyone was warning me about how easy it would be to get yourself in trouble out there. I saw a huge amount of police. Obviously there's security in DC for obvious reasons. A lot of police around all of the political buildings, the White House, the US Congress, which of course you'd expect, but just on the streets as normal. I took the metro. It's like very similar to like the London Underground out there, and you can really get around the city quite nicely, quite easily. I mean, I just went to see the Pentagon. I actually did a video from the Pentagon, which is up on the channel, just a 2-minute. But literally, you jump on the tube in central DC. You go take the line for 2 or 3 stops, and you're out by the Pentagon, and you can check that out. One thing I would say, and I think this is just the sad state of the world these days, obviously with security threats left, right, and centre, is as a tourist, you can't really see these buildings and these sort of sites in the same way you used to be able to. I mean, the White House, you can't even stand on the street in front of it now. The street in front of the White House is all boarded off, obviously for security reasons. So if you want to take a photo, you're actually a whole street away. And it's the same with the Pentagon. Obviously you can't get too close to it, which I guess you'd expect given what goes on there. The police at the US Congress on Capitol were very jumpy. I at one point made the mistake of trying to pull out my mobile phone from my backpack, and I noticed 3 or 4 of them all looking at me, panicking, wondering what I was going to take out of my backpack. But that's life as it is these days, which is unfortunate. I was in France. I was in Paris about 6 8 weeks ago, and it was exactly the same. You know, you can't even get into the Eiffel Tower now. There's like an outside perimeter of the Eiffel Tower, so you know there's actually fencing sort of around the Eiffel Tower, say 200 meters each side of it. So, yeah, that's unfortunate, but that's life in the 21st century, and you certainly got a lot of that in DC. You know, there was a high police presence keeping you away from the White House, keeping you away from the Pentagon. But you know, maybe you'd be naive not to expect that. But yeah, it's quite a cool happening place. Real good places to eat, real good places to drink. You know, the food was exceptional from start to finish. And you know, obviously in a place like DC, if you want to go to a real nice restaurant and spend a load of money, you know, the place is well catered for that. If you want to go and have a smart night out and go for cocktails and go for, you know, real top class food, it's well catered for that. But what impressed me is if you just want to go and get a cheap beer in a bar, and if you want to go and get like a burger, you're experiencing like a different level to what you'd get in London. You know, if you wanted to go to a little backstreet pub in London and get a beer and a burger, you know what that's like. It's a bit of a hit and miss experience. In DC, honestly, everything was absolutely second to none. You could go to like the sort of most down market cafes, and all the food there was just a complete level above, you know, what you get back home. Um, I guess the food, like a lot of the food, you're getting sort of barbecue style food. There's a lot of sort of Texas barbecue style restaurants, which I enjoyed. A lot of burger places. It's kind of that heavy sort of meat food that you kind of associate with the States, but you know, it's real good. I got to say, and I know this is probably a down market thing to say. I went to Hooters, and do you know what? They do this thing called a Big Daddy in Hooters, which is, it's like a pint and a half, right? And you get a pint and a half of beer. I think it was $4.50, which is about, I don't know, £3.50. You know, in London, you would no way you'd even get a pint for £3.50, but in DC you're getting pint and a half. And honestly, it was the coldest beer that I've ever had in Hooters. You know, coldest beer I've ever had, and I think it was just like they had a few on tap. You know, they had Coors Light, Miller Lite, Budweiser, etc. So you know, it's just those kind of lagers you expect. But yeah, it's so good how cold it was and stuff. But yeah, I'm trying to think what else I can tell you guys about DC. I went to, I think basketball season hasn't started just yet. But I was quite close to the Washington Wizards, which are the basketball team out there, and we were lucky enough there was a pre-season friendly when we were on, so we were able to get tickets. It was actually against the Chinese team. I'm going to butcher this pronunciation. It's something like the Zulong Lions or something of that nature. So went there. You could pick up tickets for like $5 or $6, seriously, and it was pretty empty because it was a pre-season game. But you know what surprised? It was good. It was good fun. I mean, I've never been to something like that before, so it was good to see. But what surprised me on the whole is just like the variety. You know, the choice you have. You know, I don't know if you guys go to like a soccer game in England. I'm saying soccer because I'm in America. But you know, what do they serve? Tea, coffee, Coca-Cola, lemonade, chips. You know, you go to like a basketball game there. They've got like 30, 40 restaurants on site. They've got 20 stands each doing different snacks. Yeah, you go to like to buy a can of Coke here, and they got like 50 different types of Coke, and then 50 competitors. You know, selection here is just like different level. You know, in terms of you can have variety on of everything. Which, yeah, I guess you get used to it when you live out here. But for someone who's visiting, you know, it's kind of different what you'd expect. So, yeah, that was cool. That was all cool. We did this thing. I'll tell you, maybe this is a bit geeky, but we went to the Spy Museum in DC. And I thought that was quite cool, actually. So it's kind of a museum of like spy-related stuff. So like lots of like cars from the James Bond movie. They had like lots of old-fashioned, you know, gadgets that spies had from back in the day. A lot of history about spies. But one of the things that was quite cool is at the start you had to assume an identity. So you had to like make up a fake name, fake profile, and then you get like checkpoints along the way to see how you're getting on with your mission. So at certain points you have to go through airport security, and you're being grilled as to you know, why you're visiting the country, how long you're going to be there for, what the purpose of your visit is. Then there's other little tests along the way where, you know, you have to kind of see if you can I don't know, so you can leave messages. So for example, Do you leave your message in a can of Coke? Do you leave your message? Do you try and put something on a bin, etc.? I don't know. I just thought it was quite cool, quite geeky. But if any of you guys are going to be in DC anytime soon, for the price of admission, that's a good laugh for an hour or two, definitely. But yeah, I had a good time in DC. I kind of felt like 3 or 4 days you could do it all. I feel like I've left having seen DC, and maybe that's misinformed thing of me to say. Maybe there'll be people. I know there's 1 or 2 people who tune into this channel based in DC, and maybe there's a whole nother layer to it, and I've just scratched the surface. But I've left with a good impression, feeling like I've done it all. And now I'm on to New York. So I've been strolling around Central Park today, which is pretty cool. Gonna go off in a minute. It's about 6 o'clock here, so gonna go off in a minute and have a beer and a burger on Times Square maybe, and see what I can see. But yeah. So I don't know. I've just ranted about my life there for 11 minutes, guys. Hope you don't mind me doing it. But if you did, I guess you've stopped watching this 10 minutes ago. So there you go. What's going on in boxing? Let's talk about boxing. So we had the Eddie Hearn card last week. I did the video on Ohara Davies. I guess what I was trying to say, I only chatted for 2 minutes on that, but I guess what I was trying to say in that video is, Ohara's a good fighter. You get fighters like Ohara Davies, Chris Eubank Jr. You get fighters, and their style means they're devastating at British title level. They hit so hard, etc., that they absolutely cruise through British title level. And maybe Ohara's one of those kind of guys. Maybe when he fights Derry Matthews or Tom Farrell, he's going to be absolutely brutal against them. But for me, the problem is, how's he going to do against the guy who moves? Because the lack of footwork is a concern. How's he going to do against a guy with an advanced boxing brain and an advanced boxing pedigree and technique? Because he's quite predictable. He's quite versatile. He's not so versatile. He's relatively stationary, relatively flat-footed. He's loading up massively on punches. He's throwing the same punches over and over again. Everything's trying to take you out. And you just wonder, could a real seasoned fighter or a top-class fighter like a Josh Taylor, could you work him out a bit? Could you... I'm in with Ohara Davies. I know exactly what he's going to do. I haven't watched Paul Butler versus Hall. Chisora I've watched. I spoke about him the other day. Chisora, he is what he is at this point. I still haven't seen this Ajit Kabayel. I've had mixed reports. Some people tell me he's useless. Some people tell me he's really good. So I'll have to give him a look. Butler beat Stuart Hall. I've always rated Paul Butler. I know some people don't rate him. I've always thought he's decent. He's a decent fighter. Butler, Jamie McDonald, certainly a fight I'm going to watch. But let's see if McDonald gets through against Laborio Solis. That was a very tough fight for him first time round. So we'll have to see how he gets on. What else is going on? Eubank versus Yildirim this week. I haven't got full perspective of what's going on in that fight because I haven't watched all of Yildirim's back catalogue. But yeah, from what I'm told, Yildirim is one of these guys who's going to be there in front of you. He's going to be there to hit. He's going to have a brawl. And that's kind of always a fight that's going to play into Eubank Jr.'s hands. And that's probably why they chose Yildirim. I mean, notice, look back at Eubank's background and career. Since Eubank lost to Billy Joe Saunders, all the guys he's been in with have been guys who've been easy for him to find. Saunders gave him trouble because Saunders was slick. Saunders was bobbing and weaving. He was moving left and right. He was feinting. He was dipping. He was diving. All the fighters he's fought since have been very easy to find. They've been there in front of him. They haven't been too problematic for a guy like Chris Eubank Jr. And if this, if this Yildirim is a bit like a young Arthur Abraham, if he's technically limited, then he's going to find it very tough work because Eubank is a force to be reckoned with. Eubank is an elite fighter at what he does. And he's going to be very difficult for any man on the planet to beat if they just stand in front of Eubank. The way to beat Eubank, the blueprint is established. Billy Joe Saunders did it. And, a fighter who can cause him those sort of problems may have the same success. Because, let's face it, Chris Eubank Jr. hasn't actually been in that situation again since, in the ring. He's faced guys who've been there. So we don't know. We don't know if he's improved against someone with Billy Joe's style. But if you're just going to go to war with him, if you're just going to stand in front of him, he's a very tough man to beat. And unless Avni Yildirim is exceptional, he's in for a tough night's work. What else is going on? Mike Perez Bradis. I haven't watched the fight. I understand it was a terrible fight. I did speculate on the podcast. I said I think Mike Perez could cause the upset, but I did say I have concerns about his stamina. I've always maintained on this channel, I've said it from day one, having a six pack does not impress me in boxing terms. You get people like George Groves, James DeGale, truly exceptional fighters, come in good shape. They're not high stamina fighters for 12 rounds. You get a guy like Tyson Fury, massively overweight, not an ab in sight, and he can dance on his back foot for 12 stone for 12 rounds. Maybe Perez is one of them guys. Maybe Perez is not a high stamina fighter. I remember in the heavyweights we saw Perez do really well against Bryant Jennings and Carlos Takam and throw the wins away there in the second half of those fights through lack of stamina. He's got a six pack now. He's slimmed down now. Just because he's got a six pack, that doesn't necessarily mean he's fit. That doesn't necessarily mean he's got 12 rounds of hard boxing in him. And that's the reports I've had. I'll need to watch the fight when I get home. But that's kind of what it sounds like. Is that he caused Bradis some problems, but it became very scrappy. Bradis was holding a lot. Perez wasn't exceptional in his own right, and whilst Perez looked like he could cause problems and hang at that level, he didn't really go on to take the fight, and that's disappointing. Perez is going to be one of these guys, when it gets to the end of his career, unfortunately, it's going to be one of those discussions about what might have been, and that's unfortunate. What else can I tell you guys about? I see Tyson Fury has been on Twitter today. Let's see what he's tweeted out. I'll read it out to you guys. Just trying to put it up now. Yes, Tyson Fury, this is from the official verified account of Tyson Fury, has tweeted out hashtag suspension lifted, hashtag return of the Mac, hashtag totally innocent, hashtag can't keep a good man down, hashtag told you so. So, the messages from Tyson Fury's Twitter account have been cryptic over the years. You wouldn't be sensible if you'd necessarily believed every word that has been tweeted out from Tyson Fury's account. He's retired more times than I care to remember via Twitter, unretired, etc. I see Shannon Briggs has taken to Twitter to call him out for his return. So let's see what happens with Tyson Fury. Let's see if let's see how quickly he can come back. Here's a few more drinks. Tyson's put, after thinking long and hard about my return, I will not be applying for a British Boxing Board of Control licence. After the way they have handled stuff, no thanks. And then he's tweeted out again, make it clear I'll not apply to the British Boxing Board of Control for a new licence. I'll go elsewhere, take my money and business somewhere else. Appreciate that. I can see a tweet from Peter Fury saying they'll also look to be withdrawing Huey's licence. Bent bastards, all of them. So, Fury seems to be coming back. I mean, the issue of Tyson Fury's licence is one thing. The issue of Tyson Fury's gut is a second thing, I'm afraid. You guys know I'm one of the biggest Tyson Fury fans out there. But if he comes back, anything like the condition he's in now, he'll get beaten. And I'd rather he stayed retired and became something of a cult figure rather than coming back and getting smashed up by a journeyman. And make no mistake, if he comes back in anything like the condition he is in now, it's going to be very, very tough for him. I can see Fury's tweeted Briggs saying, I'm going to give you the best whooping ever. It'll be like a love-making beating, long and slow with lots of times to play. So, Fury versus Shannon Briggs, I guess the build-up would be pay-per-view. I'm not sure about the fight. But anyway, lots going on in boxing. Just the general ramble from me. I'm going to call it a day there. Hit the like button, guys. Hit me with your comments on what's going on in the sport. Hit subscribe if you haven't done so before. And thanks for tuning in. And we'll see what the schedule's looking like. But I'm sure I'll check in with you guys at some point in the near future. Over and out. Cheers.